everyone, welcome back to my vlog channel. Oh, there's a dog hair on my camera lens. I'm actually coming to you from a different room in our house today, which I don't think you guys have even ever seen. We recently cleared out our sort of conservatory-ish room. This particular room in the house has always just been a sort of like a little dump room where since we've moved in, we've sort of just like dumped a load of stuff, and a lot of my sort of PR packages were coming here. We sort of just treated it as a dump room of anything that we wanted to keep but wasn't really sure where to put. And the other day James's mum actually came and helped us sort it all out, and so we now have a bit of an extra room in here. It's still not finished and there's still a few things that we actually need to get rid of. So there's still like a few bits on the top here that we need to get rid of, and I've got some drawers with some makeup in, and then yeah, like random bits and pieces that we still need to sort of sort out. The most sorted area, I guess, is this, which is where we've got like all our shoes, and then I've put my little houseplant on top of here, got some random little like bits and pieces. And then down here I've got some giveaway parcels that I need to package up. These cushions were from Homebase actually. They were buy one get one free and I really like them. And I'm just gonna sit here where I talk to you. I don't know why the dustpan and brush is just on here. But this morning James isn't actually working, and it is just after Halloween. So Halloween was yesterday. It is Monday today. I've had a pretty hectic few days in terms of like doing Halloween looks. And so this morning I'm taking things a bit easier. We're gonna go to the range to look at some of their Christmas stuff, which might seem a little bit premature, but last year we went a bit late and everything had sort of sold out. So we're gonna go today on November the 1st. There's a few extra bits that we need to get. Oh, the sun is right in my eyes. I swear I don't spend my entire life just going to the range and B&M. Although my vlog channel seems like that. I actually had a really nice weekend. On Friday, my brother and his girlfriend came over for the weekend, not to stay here, but they stayed with my parents. And so saw them on Friday, and also went to see my nan and my step-granddad. Is it step-granddad? My nan's husband, but he's kind of like my granddad because he's been married to my nan since I was like 10. My grandparents, I guess I should just say. And then on that evening, I went to an event with Sophie Foster, which I didn't vlog because I was just a +1, and it was just like a event with Samsung, and I wasn't really sure if they would want me to get my Sony camera out to be filming stuff. But I'm gonna shut up now because I've been talking for 5 minutes. We need to go. Getting a Christmas throw. Yes, living the dream. Is that thing in my way? No. Come on, focus on me, not my steering wheel. They actually had some pretty decent stuff in the range. If you're looking for Christmas stuff, get down to your local The Range, because they had some amazing stuff, like little electronic things that like move, and they had so many great things. Like if you have kids, they had like Santa's letterboxes and stuff like that. Some pretty great stuff. We got a few bits, but I didn't get that much because I don't know, there was some stuff that I thought maybe I should get nearer the time, maybe I can find cheaper online, or like make myself, like some sort of like garland things. Not garland, what are they called, like the long strips of like fake Christmas tree. But we did get a few bits and some really cute little gnome decorations, and James has actually just gone into McDonald's to collect us some food. We were driving past a McDonald's and I just can't resist. We're both really hungry. We were gonna go home and have some healthy lunch, but we're gonna get a McDonald's. So James has just gone in to collect it. I ordered off the app because I had like a discount or something. And I'm very conscious that people might be looking at me in the car park, watching me talk to myself and my camera. Also, just a side note, I accidentally came out wearing my Ugg boots. I was wearing them around the house and I just walked out in them, and I think we should petition to bring Ugg boots back in fashion, because honestly they're the most comfy thing ever. They're not actually real Uggs, they're just like some ones that I got in TK Maxx maybe like 10 years ago. James has genuinely been gone about 10 minutes and he's got my phone because I ordered off the app. I thought he was just gonna quickly pop in and collect it, but there must be a queue or something because he's still not back. And I'm sitting here phoneless in my car, like what am I supposed to do? Just sit here and like sing to myself? I'm so bored. James has brought back the goods. These nacho cheese things are really nice. They're a bit spicy, but they're nice. I've got a quarter pounder with cheese, meal with a Coke Zero and some chips. And the sun is in my eyes. I'll see you in a bit. I'm just sitting at editing. Sorry, that's Pinky playing with her ball. But I've just realised if you don't follow my Instagram, you will have had no idea what went on. Basically, to cut a long story short, I ended up getting tonsillitis. I ended up in hospital with a severe infection. Yeah, I explain the whole story at the end of this vlog. But yeah, my festive vlog didn't quite go to plan. Well, the rest of this vlog did not go to plan at all. Things went from bad to worse very quickly, and I will explain the full story once I'm feeling a bit better, but for the next few days I just need to rest and recover, because as you can probably tell, I don't have much of a voice. I do actually feel a bit more human today, which is why I've picked up my camera, but I still am just gonna like, take it very easy and just probably spend most of the day just in bed still. I'm definitely on the mend and doing better than I was. YouTube has really seen me at my worst at this point. Today it is Friday.
and I've pretty much lived in my pajamas, switching between the sofa and my bed for the past few days. The antibiotics are definitely working now. Well, I say definitely, I hope they are. But look at the size of my antibiotics. When the lady gave these to me in the hospital, she was like, oh, good luck with those. They're like horse tablets. And I was like, my throat was so swollen. How was I, for the first couple days that I was taking these, very difficult to swallow. I could barely swallow water, and then I had to swallow one of these. I'm gonna stop talking now because it's probably not good for me.
Hello everyone. I think it's Tuesday. So like the Tuesday after. Basically like Tuesday a week later. So I know my dad's coming to take you for a walk in a minute. I guess I would just sort of start from the beginning and tell you guys sort of the story of what happened. So I started off filming this vlog obviously intending to just do like a fun, festive thing, like shop with me. I don't even really remember what footage I ended up getting. I know that we got a McDonald's. Basically, when we got home that afternoon, I was planning to film a video. But when we got home, I was like, oh, my throat actually feels quite sore. Which like earlier in the morning, I felt totally fine. But then when I got home and sort of like sat down, I was like, oh, my throat doesn't quite feel right. And so I took a COVID test and it was negative. I was just thinking like, oh, maybe it's sort of leftover sore throat from when I was ill like 2 weeks before that, because me and James had literally just got over like a pretty bad cold. Everyone seems to be ill at the moment and like got this horrible cold, and myself and James had had that like 2 weeks before. And so yeah, I'd taken the COVID test, it was negative, but I was slowly feeling like worse and worse as the afternoon went on. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna film, I'm just gonna try and like sleep off, and I'll probably be feeling better tomorrow, so I'll film tomorrow. By the evening, like by the time I went to bed, I took some cough medicine. I wasn't feeling that great, like my throat felt a bit more painful, but I just thought, okay, I'll take some like cold and flu tablets, or like some, I can't remember, I think I took some Beecham's all-in-one syrup stuff, and I went to sleep and I thought it would be totally fine. I woke up at 3 a.m. that night, so obviously like, you know, 3 a.m. on Tuesday, very early morning, and my throat felt like I was swallowing a golf ball covered in razor blades, is how I would describe it. Like, it was so painful, and I was actually sort of like struggling to swallow my own saliva and also struggling to swallow water, and I was starting to sort of panic a bit because I couldn't get back to sleep. By the way, actually, I'm just gonna say now before I get into like the graphic details of this, I just want to put in a little trigger warning if anybody doesn't like to hear about a whole host of different things, really, like sick, needles, blood, everything sort of like graphic. I'm just gonna put a little warning here. This story, I am gonna tell you all the details just because like I think I should probably tell you the stories to sort of like warn other people of what they should sort of look out for, and to just tell my experience, because it was probably like, it was a very traumatic few days because nothing like this has ever happened to me before. So yeah, I couldn't breathe properly. Like I was it felt like something was sort of like stuck between my nose and my throat, and I was like trying to swallow it but it wasn't working. Like it just felt like there was a big lump there, which was horrible, and it was also like really phlegmy and it was just disgusting. It was making me feel sick. I couldn't like swallow it, and so I was really struggling to sleep, and I started to sort of panic because like I couldn't breathe properly through my nose or through my mouth. That evening when I was sort of like struggling to breathe, I think at 3 a.m, James was like, well, should we phone 111? And I was like, no, like I don't want to do that at 3 a.m, like I'm too tired. So I thought I'll just try and go back to sleep. I wasn't then able to sleep for pretty much the rest of that night. I don't think I got to sleep until maybe like 6 a.m, and I slept for like 3 hours. And also that evening I kept going hot and cold, so like I was burning 1 minute, and then I would take all the covers off and like take off my pajamas, and then I would get freezing cold again, so I'd put everything back on, and it was like going backwards and forwards. I kept getting up to go to the toilet. Like basically it was just a shit night's sleep. But I thought like, oh, once I've slept this off, I'm sure I'll be fine. That morning when I woke up, I was feeling awful, like really awful. I felt like I had tonsillitis, because I've had tonsillitis I think like once or twice before, quite a few years ago, but I've had it before and my throat felt the same. But I looked in the back of my throat with the torch and like took some pictures and stuff just to see what was going on in there, and I got James to look in my throat. My throat did look quite red, but my tonsils weren't really swollen that badly, and they didn't have like the little white specks on them which you normally get with tonsillitis, but it felt like that in my throat. Like my throat felt so swollen and was like, it was really painful to swallow. I booked a video appointment with my doctor, waited around a couple hours. I was literally just like on the sofa, like trying to drink some water and like taking cold and flu tablets still. And so I had my video appointment with my doctor, and she said that from the pictures that I'd sent and also from what I was talking about, she said, it seems like you have some kind of virus. She said there's lots of viruses going around at the moment. She said because I did have the sore throat and I had a temperature in the evening, that I should take a PCR test. So I ordered one of the home PCR tests to be sent the next day because like I wasn't planning on going anywhere. But she basically just said to dose myself up on ibuprofen and paracetamol to take some of the pain away and like keep drinking lots of fluids. And then she said if I felt like it developed into anything and if I felt like it was developing into tonsillitis, to then get back in touch with them. So yeah, she actually said to me there's apparently 5 million other viruses than COVID, and there's lots of viruses about at the moment. So she was like, it's probably just one of those and it will just take you a few days to sort of get over it. So I was like, okay, she doesn't seem to think it's tonsillitis at the moment, but I need to like obviously keep an eye on it. And then all of that day and that evening, I just felt so ill. And to be honest, it was the same sort of symptoms that I had when I had tonsillitis last time. So like really swollen throat, like painful to swallow. I didn't really have much appetite. I just generally felt really tired. I think I was coughing a little bit at this point. And I just didn't feel good. I had a headache, my head was sort of throbbing, everything felt sort of congested, like my nose, my ears. I tried eating some breakfast, but I had about like 2 mouthfuls of cereal and I was just like, I can't stomach this. Like I felt like I was gonna be sick. And I was taking the cold and flu tablets like regularly on the clock every 4 hours, but they didn't really seem to be doing anything. Like I wasn't feeling any better, but I just sort of thought like, oh, I just need to rest and like sleep it off and I'm sure in a few days I'll be fine. By the evening, I was feeling really, really weak. I'd managed to eat a toasty and some tomato soup though, so I had like a little bit of food in my system, so I thought, okay, that's a good sign. I went and had a hot bath and thought like maybe I can sort of like sweat it out, but after the bath, to be honest, I didn't really feel any better and I was actually feeling worse. James actually offered to sleep downstairs on the sofa because I said to him like, I think I should sleep on the sofa because I don't want to pass this on to you. He was like, I'm not gonna make you sleep on the sofa, I'll sleep on the sofa, you have the bed to yourself. So he slept on the sofa, and then that night, which was the Tuesday night, I kept waking up in the night feeling like I was gonna be sick, and I kept like grabbing for my bowl and like leaning over it, and then I wouldn't be sick and I was sort of like falling asleep into my bowl. I'd put it down, try and go back to sleep, but like every like, I don't even know, every half hour to hour I was waking up feeling like I was gonna throw up and was like feeling really nauseous. Is that even a word, nauseous? I don't know. And then Wednesday morning I woke up about 8:30 and I was like, I'm gonna be sick. Reached for my bowl, luckily was able to be sick into my bowl, and it was just, this is like some graphic details here. It was mostly just like bright yellow bile, but in the bottom of my sick there was some bits of blood, like little tiny looking dark brown blood clot type things. So that really panicked me because I haven't really had that before, and I thought, okay, I don't think throwing up blood is a good sign. So obviously you take to Google, but on Google it had this sort of like coffee granuled sick thing, and all the pictures looked way more dramatic than mine did. Mine was maybe like, I don't know, 20 or 30 little like specks. So I thought, okay, mine isn't that bad, so maybe I don't need to be as worried. And I thought maybe some of the blood had come from me like coughing a lot and straining my throat, because I had been coughing so much I was like tasting blood in the back of my throat. So I thought, okay, it's probably just from that. And then yeah, that morning I just felt like so weak. I felt so out of it. I think I had about, for my breakfast I tried eating some ice cream because I thought I'm not gonna have Cocoa Pops because the milk will probably make me feel more sick. So I tried to, I think I had like 2 spoonfuls of ice cream and that was all I'd eaten that day. I just felt so out of it, like even just like I could barely get up out of bed to walk around and like go to the toilet. My head felt like it was going to explode. My body felt sort of like tingly. Obviously my throat was still like incredibly sore. My head just felt like it had a lot of pressure and was sort of throbbing, and my ears felt blocked. I had so much mucus, but I was struggling to actually swallow that and like struggling to even just swallow water. So I was feeling awful at this point, and I was just like, James, I'm gonna go back to bed, like I feel like death. And then a little bit later on, James came upstairs to check on me, and I was like, honestly James, I know this sounds dramatic and this does sound really dramatic, but I said to him, I feel like I'm dying. Like I have never felt that ill in my life. And so he was like, okay, I'm phoning 111. Before this, he'd been like, okay, so I think like you need to phone your GP. The reason I wasn't phoning my GP is because I couldn't like physically talk. I was trying to talk and just like a whisper was sort of coming out, and it was so painful that I was like, I don't even want to talk to anyone right now. Like, if we phone anyone, you're gonna have to talk to them because I just can't. And he kept saying like phone 111, but I was honestly really scared because when I was Googling about the whole like blood in the sick thing, it said that they will do a blood test, and I said to James, like, I just don't want them to put a needle in my arm. And I think I started crying because I was so worried about the thought of them having to like do a blood test and like stick anything in me, because I'm the first to admit I'm a massive wimp when it comes to needles. But looking back on the situation, like, I was feeling so awful that I should have just, we should have called them sooner, to be honest. But I'm so glad that James was like, right, I don't care what you say, I'm calling 111. So he called them and spoke to them like on my behalf while I was lying there like, talked through all the symptoms and everything. And the guy on the phone was like, okay, I think you need to speak to a doctor. So I'm gonna pass this case on to one of the doctors and they'll call you back soon. And so I think it was only like maybe 20 minutes later, we had a phone call from a doctor, and again, like, went through all the symptoms with him. And he was like, okay, I think you need to get to a hospital within the next 4 hours. So I'm going to book you an appointment at your local urgent care, and you need to see somebody basically. And so then I was like, oh, for goodness sake. Because I just really didn't want to go to hospital. You know, when you're feeling ill, like, the last thing you want to do is be waiting around for hours, like, in a waiting room. But it wasn't the A&E section that they sent me, it was like the urgent care, and luckily they were able to book me an appointment. He'd called us at 1 and he was like, are you able to get there for 1:30? And so James was just like, yes. So then we were like madly rushing around to get out the house. I then had to get myself out of bed, pull on some clothes, hadn't brushed my hair, hadn't like washed, hadn't done anything. Like, I was in an absolute state. Just pulled on some clothes, chucked on my Ugg boots. James drove me down to the hospital, and then I'd brought my sick bowl in James's car, and then we got there and were waiting around in the waiting room for ages. My appointment was supposed to be at 1:30. I don't think I got seen until 3, but in the waiting room I was literally just like leaning on James's shoulder like this, just like in and out of sort of like sleep. Just, I remember turning to James and being like, I just want to be seen now, because I felt so rough. So then they called me in at 3. They were like, Sophie? I was like, oh yes, finally. Walked in there, started telling her all of my symptoms with like the little voice that I had, like told her my whole life story. And then she was like, oh, and yeah, so just to check, you're 21 weeks pregnant, right? And I was like, no, I'm not pregnant. And she was like, ah, okay. I think we've got the wrong Sophie. She was like, sorry, I should have called for surname as well. And I was like, are you kidding me? So then she was like, okay, wait here. I'm just gonna go and get one of my colleagues. And she went and found another doctor, and then I went to another room with her. And so then I explained all my symptoms to this doctor, and she said, because of like the blood in my sick, and because I'd had a temperature, and because I clearly looked quite rough, she was like, we are gonna need to do a blood test just to check that everything's okay. So I was like, oh, okay. And when I've had a blood test before in the past, like at the doctor's, they just take you into another room, they do the blood test, and then they sort of like send you on your way and call you with the results. So I thought that that was what they were gonna do. But they took me into this room, and it was like the same day emergency ward. And so there's like, you know, the hospital beds and all of these curtains and like doctors walking around, and I was like, ah, okay, this looks kind of scary. I went and sat in my little section, my own little like hospital bed and chair and stuff, and they pulled the curtain around, and there was an absolutely lovely a man and a woman, and they were just so nice, which was great. But they were like, are you okay with needles? And I was like, no, not really. Like, I get a bit funny with them. And he was like, okay, like, you're gonna be okay, we're just gonna put the cannula in your arm. And I was like, huh? Cannula? What? And he was like, have you had this before? And I was like, no, I'm a bit scared, to be honest. Oh, even just thinking about it makes me feel a bit queasy. But the lovely man came around to one side of me, and then there was a lovely lady who, she was like, okay, you can hold my hand, squeeze it as tight as you want. And so I just literally like laid there on this bed, was looking away from it, and he was like, sharp pinch, they put the cannula in. I was like, ugh, like, it was not very nice. And yeah, basically, if you don't know, that is like a tube that goes directly into your vein, I think. If they needed to like feed me any fluids or antibiotics, then it all just goes through like the tube in your arm. Still got a bit of a bruise there from where it was. Hello, so I'm back. My dad just came to pick up Pinks to take her for a walk, and I do just want to say, like, mum and dad, if you're watching this, and also James's parents, if you're watching this, They have been absolutely amazing, like throughout this whole thing, like walking Pinky and bringing medication or like anything that we need, like when James has been working, because he's at work at the moment. Obviously, like I'm not well enough to be walking Pinky. I have been for a gentle walk like yesterday and the day before, but honestly today, like I'm just feeling really rough. But I will continue on with the story. So yeah, where was I? They put the cannula in my arm, which is the first time that I've ever had that, and then after that, the lovely lady, I'm not sure if like they were nurses or doctors, but she said to me, "Do you have a YouTube channel?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And she was like, "Oh, I recognise you from your nails. I'm a subscriber." Because I had my Halloween nails still, and I was just like, oh no, I'm so embarrassed, like you're seeing me in such a state. But obviously like they are used to seeing people in all different states, so I'm sure that they didn't care at all. But I was like, this is why there's no videos this week. And she was like, that's okay, you're forgiven. So then I was like, can I just message my boyfriend to let him know what's going on, because I'd been gone at this point for like half an hour and he was still in the waiting room. And they were like, oh yeah, he can come through if he likes. So I was like, oh thank God. So I messaged James and he was able to come and just like sit in the chair next to me, which was a massive relief. So then they said to me like, oh, you need to go and take a chest x-ray. But at this point, like my cannula wasn't connected to anything because they'd done the blood test and I wasn't hooked up to a tube or anything yet. But it was just hanging out my arm, which is obviously probably like standard procedure in hospitals, but for somebody that's a bit queasy about stuff like that and needles and like stuff, they sent me for my chest x-ray with obviously the tube just hanging out my arm, just flapping about, which was making me feel so queasy. So they sent me down this corridor to the x-ray room, and I like buzzed on the thing and they opened the door for me and I walked in, and it was the accident and emergency ward. And I was just looking around like, what am I supposed to do? There was like a lady like screaming, there was somebody else that was like crying, saying that she just wanted her husband. And so I was just looking around like, oh God, like have I walked into the right place? And then somebody came over to me and was like, are you okay? And I was like, oh, I've been sent for an x-ray. And they were like, oh yeah, it's just in this room there. So I poked my head in, there was nobody in there. So they were like, oh, if you just wait on a chair, like I'm sure somebody will come and get you. And so I waited there, and then they called me in for my x-ray. And then the lady was like, okay, so if you just take off your jumper and take off your bra, you can leave your t-shirt on, but then we'll do the x-ray. And so I'm trying to get my jumper off over my tube in my arm and do my bra like one-handed. And then after I've done this, the lady then goes, weird question, what do you do for a job? I was like, I make YouTube videos. And she was like, oh, I thought so. Like I recognized you just from like your eyes upwards, because obviously I had my mask on. And I was like, oh no way. And again was like, oh, I'm really sorry that you're seeing me in such a state. So then I did the chest x-ray. I'm not even really sure why I did that, I guess to just check for something, who knows. Then walked back, got back, and they were like, okay, can you now go and do a urine sample? So they gave me the like tube and like this bigger pot to go do a urine sample. I just go to the toilet. Again, like feeling quite shaky still because I'm not doing too good. Did the urine sample. As I'm trying to pour it into the little tube, managed to spill it on my tracksuit bottoms and my pants. So I've just spilled my own piss on myself, have no other clothes with me, and then have to go back and lie in the hospital bed. So obviously at this point they'd done the blood test, they'd done the chest x-ray, they'd done the urine sample. Like I was so grateful, honestly. Like all of the medical staff there were absolutely amazing, and were just so kind, and I'm so thankful that they did so many sort of like thorough checks just to check that I was okay, because to be honest I wasn't expecting that at all, but like they were very thorough. And yeah, I'm so grateful for the NHS. They're honestly amazing, and we're so lucky to live in the UK and like be able to have such amazing medical care. A super lovely doctor came over to talk to me. She was honestly so nice. She was like, can you just sit up for a sec, I just need to check your heart. So she checked my heart. She sort of like prodded and poked my stomach to see if I had any pain there. She was like checking the pressure on my legs, I think, like poking my legs and stuff. And then she said to me, she was like, okay, we've had your blood test results back. You don't seem to be anemic, so we're not worried about that. And I was like, okay. She said, however, and she looked quite worried. She was like, however, your blood tests are showing that you have a severe infection, and your infection markers are all like really high, like in the sort of red zone. And I was like, huh? Like, what does that mean? I've never had a severe infection before. I don't know what that means. Like, It sounded really scary, and so she was like, I just need to go and speak to my superior and then we'll come up with a plan of action. And me and James were like, okay. And then she walked off and I just burst into tears because I was so scared. Like, it just sounded terrifying. But yeah, obviously, like, there's so many worse things that it could have been, and I know that so many people have way worse experiences, like with illnesses and stuff like that. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm pretty lucky, but for me, like, I'd never had any sort of like health scares like this before. I'd never had to stay in hospital for anything, and so I was just really scared, to be honest. And being told that I had a severe infection, I was like, I have no idea what that means. Like, am I gonna have to be in overnight? Like, I don't know. Like, am I gonna be okay? And I've since found out today at my follow-up blood test, my white blood cells were like really high, and there's another infection indicator or infection marker, I can't remember how they call it. I think he said the C something. I think it was the C protein or something like that. He said a normal level is 5. Last week when I was in hospital, my levels were at 173 when the normal level is 5. And I think at 200, that is when you reach sepsis, which is obviously extremely dangerous and can kill you. So it was pretty bad, basically. It was pretty bad. They didn't tell me that at the time because I don't think they didn't want to scare me, obviously, and that probably would have made it a lot worse. And so at this point, I think I messaged my parents because I was like, up until this point, they didn't even know that I was in hospital. I didn't want to scare them, but I messaged them being like, I don't want you to freak out. Like, I'm okay. I'm gonna be fine, but I'm in hospital. Is there any chance that you guys could come and like let Pinky out and walk Pinky? Because we thought we were just gonna be like out there within an hour, you know? But I think at this point it was sort of like 5 p.m. in the evening, and I had no idea if I was going to be kept in, like how long I was going to be kept in for. Dad came and he walked Pinky, and then James's parents came and they actually collected Pinky just so that she could stay there with them and their dog, just in case, you know, I had to be kept in or whatever. And so then the lovely doctor came back and she said, okay, I've spoken to my superior. The good news is that your body seems to be sort of like coping with it quite well, because like I was conscious and I was sort of like alert. She was like, that's a good sign. But she said, but we are going to need to give you some antibiotics and give you some fluids through your IV. We'll sort of see how you're feeling after that and then like decide where to go from there. So then another nurse came over and she started like, she got my little tube thing in my arm, and so I just turned away instantly because I was like, I don't want to see what's going on. She didn't say hello or anything. She just came over and starts like, she's got this syringe and starts like pushing this liquid into my arm, which smelled horrible and like felt really weird and cold. And I was like, sorry, what's this? And she was like, why? And I was like, oh, just because I'm curious, because, you know, you're just putting something in my arm. And she was like, oh, it's penicillin. And I was like, okay. They injected me with that. It felt so weird and cold as it was like going up. And then James was like, I'm just going to pop home quickly to sort of like help our parents sort out Pinky and stuff. And also James wanted to get some food for me because I hadn't eaten since 10 a.m. that morning, and all I'd had was 2 mouthfuls of ice cream and also some phone chargers because both our phones were like nearly dying, so he wanted to get the portable charger. And so then James had popped home at this point, and then I think it was like just gone 5 p.m. They'd injected me with the penicillin, and I was literally just lying there on the bed, like shaking like this. I felt so sick, and I was messaging James like, please just bring me some food quickly, like I feel really sick. And I thought that was because I hadn't eaten, which probably also didn't help. But then a doctor was walking past, the lovely man who'd put the cannula in my arm, and he was like, are you okay? And I was like, no, I feel like I'm gonna be sick, like please can I have a bowl? So he gives me one of those like cardboard bowls. Luckily he came over with like a few of them, and then he was like, oh, I actually just need to do a throat swab. And I was like, okay, like I'm feeling quite sick, just as a warning. And he was like, okay, well, I'm really sorry, I'm gonna have to do this anyway. So they did the throat swab. It obviously like can make you gag anyway, and when I was feeling like I was gonna be sick, he did the throat swab, and as soon as he took it out, I was like, oh, grab the bowl, sick into it. But because James wasn't there, there was no one there to hold my hair back. My hair was down. My hair went in it. I filled one bowl, and then the guy came over and had to quickly swap me for a second bowl. And then he came over with like a cloth and was like, I'm just gonna wipe out your hair. Like, honestly, it was a really low point in my life.
But after I'd been sick, I felt a lot better. And then they told me that it was probably the penicillin, like it makes a lot of people throw up. So they then came and filled my tube with some anti-sickness medication, which was supposed to sort of like counteract the nausea, which was great. And I kept sort of saying to them, like, is it okay to eat anything? Like, I'm feeling really hungry, I haven't eaten anything all day. And they were like, yeah, you can do if you want, like if you're feeling up to it. But then I was sort of like, well, I'm in a hospital bed hooked up to an IV, like where do I get food from? So luckily James came and got me some, but they had given me like a bottle of water. But the funny thing was as well, they gave me a bottle of water after I was sick, and then I was like, I'm trying to open it with one hand with the tube and my other thing. James came back with some food. I was able to eat a packet of quavers, which was great. And then at this point, they'd hooked me up to like some fluids in an IV bag, and they basically just said like, this is going to take just over an hour for it all to like get absorbed into your body and stuff. So I just sort of had to lie there while it was like going into my system, and then they said once you finish the fluids we'll sort of see how you're doing, and then, you know, decide if we can send you home or whatever. And so yeah, we basically just like sat there for a while. I don't know if they actually ended up giving me some more fluids, because after I'd been sick they were like, you need some more fluids. I can't remember, so I don't know if I had 2 bags of fluid or 1, to be honest, but when it had got down to the last little bit, they came over and they were like, how are you feeling? And I was like, you know, like I still felt awful, but I was like, I feel better than I was when I came in. And they were like, okay, I think you're gonna be fine to go home and just rest, but if you have any issues, like call us straight away. I think I was discharged at about 6:30 p.m. and they came over and gave me some antibiotics, which obviously like I'm still taking now. I've got to take them for a week. I think I finished them on Thursday. Yeah, they gave me these huge antibiotic tablets to take. The lady came over and ripped my tube out my arm, and she literally was just like, I'm just gonna pull it out. She was like, I tend to just do like the quick, you know, rip off the tape, rip it out. It makes me feel sick thinking about it. And then yeah, I was sent home with some antibiotics. The first day that I sort of like was feeling a little bit better was on like Saturday. I think the antibiotics sort of started to kick in. So yeah, the next few days were pretty rough. James was still sleeping on the sofa just so that I had the bed to myself, which was so nice of him. But yeah, I pretty much, I didn't really have any voice, like I couldn't really speak. It was just coming out as a whisper or just like very, very sort of like croaky. And for the next few days, obviously I had pretty much like no energy, was just like lying on the sofa, not really eating a whole lot, to be honest, because I didn't really have much appetite. The antibiotics that I'm on are quite strong and they make me feel quite sick. I'm now taking some probiotics with them, which is supposed to sort of like help. It's been a pretty rough week, to be honest, but I am on the mend. I'm feeling... Oh, there's a helicopter. I am feeling so much better than I was. You know, like I'm able to eat now, and I've got my voice back. I'm still coughing a lot, and I still feel quite sort of like on and off. I feel quite sort of weak, and I think as well actually my antibiotics are sort of causing some of that because they are quite strong ones. They make me feel quite sick, and actually TMI, but yesterday I had awful diarrhea for about 2 hours. The kind where you're like sweating and like feel like you're gonna pass out. And I think that that is a side effect from the antibiotics, because obviously they kill all of the bacteria in your stomach. Oh, and I forgot to mention as well, when I was leaving, I said to the lovely doctor, I was like, do you know what it is that was wrong with me? And she said, I think it's just a severe case of bacterial tonsillitis. So that's what they thought that it was. Oh, and obviously I'd taken my PCR test that was like the home kit one. That came back negative, and I'm also assuming that they probably would have tested me for COVID at the hospital anyway. I went and had my follow-up blood test, and so they took my bloods, and then I had to wait there for about an hour to get the results. And yeah, that was when he told me that all of my like infection indicators or infection markers or something like that, they were all like very, very high. My white blood cells were very high. They've now come back to a more normal level. And then my C something or other, I think it's the C protein, which like I said, the normal level is 5. Mine was at 173. So to be honest, I was so lucky that we went in when we did, because if I'd have left it much longer, it could have developed into sepsis. So my God, I am so grateful that James phoned 111 and was like, we need to get you to hospital. Because even though like I was obviously feeling really rough, I just thought like I had like a bad case of the flu and
I felt ill before and I was like, oh, I just need to sleep it off and like keep taking my medication. But obviously in that situation, when you've got a bacterial infection, cold and flu tablets aren't gonna do shit. But anyway, my C protein thingy, whatever levels, infection levels, they're a lot lower. So it's, I think he said it was 15.4 today. So it's still not back down to like a normal level. But obviously like it's a lot better than it was. And so he basically just said like, continue to take your antibiotics, continue to rest, and if you have any of your symptoms get worse again, like call us straight away, and like come in. And yeah, basically just said that I'm on the mend. Hopefully in the next few days I'll be feeling a lot better. I was sort of hoping that by now I'd be feeling like back to normal. Just keep going through these sort of like waves of energy of like feeling sick, feeling like really tired, and obviously like it's weird, like right now my cough is fine, but it's mostly in the night. Like last night I was coughing so much. I just felt like I was coughing all night, and because I have been coughing so much like continuously for the past week, my chest is so painful just from like, I think like the constant pressure of coughing. Basically, I want to say, if you're feeling really ill and like worse than you've ever felt and you feel really weak to the point that you can like barely stand, get in touch with your doctor. Call 111, which is like the UK non-emergency sort of number, but they give you guidance and then can put you in touch with a doctor. So if you're like waiting around for a doctor's appointment and you can't get one, call 111 because they might be able to get you like a sort of like urgent appointment. But what I would say at this point is don't take any risks. If you're really not feeling well, don't be like me and think, oh, I don't want to have a needle in my arm. Don't just think, oh, I can probably sleep it off. Like if you're feeling really seriously ill, get some help because you don't want to leave it to the point where you end up in hospital. Because I reckon if I'd have had some antibiotics sooner, probably wouldn't have ended up being as bad as it was, and I probably wouldn't have ended up in hospital. So lesson learned, in the future if I do get tonsillitis again, like I know how it feels. So when the lady was like, I don't think you've got tonsillitis, I was like, well, I'm pretty sure I do, but you're the doctor, so I'll just go with what you're saying. So that is my little story of how this vlog took a turn for the worst and turned into something completely different than it was supposed to be. I'm really hoping that in the next few days I will feel well enough to sit down and film a video, because there are so many videos that I want to film. My Colourpop and Nightmare Before Christmas stuff has arrived, but I just don't have the energy right now to film it. But I just really hope that by the end of the week I will be back to normal, hopefully. My manager's actually been amazing throughout all of this. As soon as I told him that I was in hospital, he was like, right, I'm signing you off work until the 15th. So any brands that I've been working with as well, thank you for understanding. That's it really. And what I would encourage you guys to do is look after yourself, because your health at the end of the day is the most important thing. Stay safe out there. Yeah, I just hope that you're all okay, and thank you so much for bearing with me during this time. Thank you again for being so nice and being so understanding and sending me so many nice messages, and I will see you guys in my next vlog. God knows what that's going to be. Maybe it'll be a haul of my Christmas purchases from the range. Right, sending you love. Goodbye.